38 competitors thrashed their vehicles over the 500-metre up and down loop track in 13 separate divisions, and some pretty hot times were recorded. Gary McFadgen lowered his track record by 34 100ths of a second, and his overall time of 29.16 seconds was staggering. 8 locals took part in what has become one of the premier events in New South Wales, and the best of the locals was Eddie Splight in a V-dub. Splight from Maitland won his class in what many described as an excellent result for the Hunter Valley.
It's 4 days since the fire which destroyed the Palm Grove hostel, but the memory of that night is still vivid for those who survived. John O'Shea was first aware of the fire when he felt heat on his face.
Very difficult to see. It was dark. Couldn't switch on the light. The fire stopped me. I breathed in a lot of hot oxygen, hot stuff in my lungs, and couldn't get out the front door.
It's not known exactly how Mr O'Shea escaped. The burns to his face and hands are healing, and he will be released from Dungog Hospital within the next few days. Also surviving the blaze and recovering well is George Mackenzie.
And I woke up later on, and the room was full of smoke, and I heard somebody outside crying, "Fire, fire." So I got up and I put my hand on the door. And the door was very hot, so I didn't try to open it. I knew there'd be something on the other side. So then I jumped out the window, or rather crawled out the window.
Mr Mackenzie and Mr O'Shea will undergo counselling along with the other 26 survivors. Debriefings have also begun for the rescue crews who attended that night. This morning they met with a police psychologist in the Dungog courthouse.
Things like this are always upsetting. It's vastly different to going to a fire where there's no problem at all, there's only property damage, but I think it's very special, the effect of death, and especially when it's magnified by 12 people dying.
But the effect of this tragedy goes far deeper than that. With a population of 2,500, the small community of Dungog has been hit hard. The bowling club has begun a clothing appeal for the victims.
The town has a big heart and they will go on. But it's something that I'm not going to forget, and I don't think a lot of the locals are going to forget in a hurry. No.
8 of the 12 victims have so far been identified. Their names are expected to be released within the next few days. At the site on Main Creek Road northwest of Dungog, police are still sifting through the blackened remains of the timber building. Today, proprietor Anne Wills was taken back to the site to help police in their investigations. The building totally destroyed, finding a cause to this fire is extremely difficult. During the next 2 days, fire officers and scientific police will be combing through the site. But there is that possibility they may never know what caused this fire.
The Liddell State Mine was put up for sale on a tender basis by Elcom in September last year as part of its efficiency drive. 4 bids were received, with the winning tenderer being a Singleton concern called the Cumnock Coal Company. Elcom's General Manager, Barry Flanagan, says Cumnock was chosen because it offered the highest price for the mine, but wouldn't disclose what that price was. Mr Flanagan said the winning bidder also has agreed to retain the existing 170 employees and has a long-term commitment to the operation.
Cumnock seems to be a company out of the blue. Elcom won't divulge who Cumnock's principals are, but says it's privately owned and has had interests in Hunter mining. A spokesman for the Muswellbrook branch of the Federated Engine Drivers and Firemen's Association said he hadn't heard of the company until this morning, and the Shadow Minister for Minerals and Energy, Pat Rogan, said he'd be interested to know of the company's background.
Elcom expects to finalise Liddell's sale within 4 weeks, and the privatisation of the Commission's 8 Central Coast mines should be wrapped up by the end of this year. But the sale of Liddell and any other state mines hinge on a union court case challenging Elcom's right to offload these operations. A Newcastle spokesman for the United Mine Workers Federation said due to the legal challenge, he couldn't comment on Liddell's sale. but Mr Rogan said the state opposition would continue fighting the selling off of state mines because the operations belong to not only this generation, but future residents of New South Wales. Scott Bevan, NBN News.
It was an emotional day for Robert Thompson, a Cessnock boy for all of his 33 years. He'll be moving to Hong Kong in less than 2 weeks.
The racing's great there. Great, there's champion jockeys ride there and all that, and the atmosphere's wonderful.
The Cessnock Cup gave Robert the chance to salute his home crowd as a winner one last time. His mount, Trevino, was well supported in the ring and an overwhelming sentimental favourite.
Riding my father's horse, Trevino, and my wife's a part owner and that, so yeah, we'll be hoping for a win today.
And the fairy tale ending came true.
Thompson's got Trevino out in front by 2 on the turn. In second place, going to the outside, Equal Night, and then came further back by Party Mood, and the next one now was Land Miro. Trevino the leader, Equal Night in second place, 1.5 lengths away, and down the outside was Party Mood, but it's Trevino's cover, and Thompson sending Trevino to the line to score by 2.
The winner paid $4.40 and $2 even. Second placed Equal Night $3.90 and Party Mood returned $1.90. The Quinella was worth $47.80. The trifecta a handy $316.60. Bruce McKenzie, NBN News.
Fire units answered the call within minutes of reports that 2 blocks of units were alight. The first crews on the scene were relieved to find that the flames were limited to basement garages used by the residents for secure storage of property. Although the buildings were in no immediate danger, those residents who hadn't already fled were evacuated amid fears that the arsonists may not have finished their firebombing spree. Beneath the units, the basement was a scene of blackened destruction. 4 of the lockups had been completely gutted. Many more showed obvious signs of fire damage. This morning, the weary tenants salvaged what they could. Almost everything in the storage area was affected by smoke or water from plumbing ruptured by the intense heat.
What's that? That is a vandal-proof light fitting.
Residents obeyed instructions from the fire brigade to forget property and get out of the building.
They told me just get the kids and everybody out of the building, so that's what we did.
Others did what they could to fight the flames until the fire brigade arrived.
I noticed the flames and the smoke flickering around up there, so I told Scott and me to get the fire brigade. But after that, I rushed upside and seen some of the people were outside, so grabbed the fire hose and started to come down and put the fire on us, put water on it.
Police say they haven't established a motive for the attack. They have no doubt that the arsonists meant business and could easily have endangered the lives of all 60 residents.
Was there potential for this to be far worse?
Yes, it was. It was very dangerous, and it was good work on the part of the police and the neighbours to get all the persons to ask them to leave and make a sort of small evacuation.
Forensic experts have examined the scene. At this stage, police have no suspects. Tom Hilston, NBN News.
It looks like a sticky brown mess, but this cover of bitumen emulsion is in fact an environmentally sound answer to a serious problem.
In the old days, we would have constructed the pipeline, left it as a construction site and let nature take its course. We're now trying to give nature a hand by revegetating the whole construction site.
The construction to upgrade the Charlestown Carrier sewage main to the Burwood treatment works left the ground scarred and open to erosion. The cover of emulsion sets on the soil, holding it together, yet still letting planted seeds germinate and grow. It's expected these areas will be covered with vegetation within 3 or 4 weeks. Within 2 months, the emulsion will break down, hopefully leaving a stable bank of soil.
The body was spotted by a group of workmen just after noon. Rescue police waded into the creek to retrieve the dead man, who police believe was only in the water for a matter of hours.
We've asked Mr Elliott, the Newcastle coroner, to come down and have a look at the body, and from now on we will try and ascertain who this person is and the reasons why he was in the water.
Shortly afterwards, they turned their attention to a nearby fishing boat where blood was found splattered on the deck.
A fisherman went past the runabout and yelled out, "Someone's been on your boat, have a look." I went down and had a look and noticed the back sliding door window smashed. Security glass with metal frame in it, it was smashed, and quite a bit of blood around.
Scientific police took blood samples and fingerprints from the boat, then searched the surrounding area for more clues. Workers at Lovett Slipways, where the boat was moored, say this trawler was also broken into overnight when 3 knives were stolen. Although it is being treated as suspicious, police have yet to determine the exact cause of death or even formally identify the man. Those facts should emerge after a post-mortem examination expected to be held in Newcastle later tonight. Bruce Mackenzie, NBN News.
Prior to today, 3 test matches had been played in the Boys' Championship, and the Blues had the series all sewn up with a clean sweep before today's 4th test. However, the Queenslanders weren't about to chuck the towel in and fought all the way, and at one stage looked as though they would snare a win. But in the dying stages of the match, New South Wales scored, and the final scoreline was 2-2 in the highly entertaining match. The girls' section was a similar scenario, with Queensland winning 1 match in Bathurst and drawing 2, and only needed victory today to wrap up their series against the host state. The Maroons did that in fine fashion, controlling play to frustrate the Blues, and finally came away with a 1-0 win this afternoon to put the series beyond doubt. With players desperate to impress the coaching staff as Newcastle heads towards the National League, BHP Austral have been in brilliant form, which came undone against Southern Districts. However, Austral still have a chance to make the playoffs and are currently in 6th position on the table. Tomorrow's opponents are equally keen for a win. Canterbury are in 4th spot and will trouble the locals as they try and consolidate their current high ranking on the ladder. The New South Wales Country Indoor Cricket Championships will be held in Newcastle this weekend at various centres including Cardiff, Lambton and Maitland. The best players in the bush from as far away as Ballina in the north, Dubbo in the west and the far south coast will contest 8 divisions in both men and women's competition, with around 40 teams making up the carnival. Many state and Australian representatives will take part, and the standard is expected to be as nearly as high as any full state championship. In boxing, Kulnura's Guy Waters will defend his Commonwealth Light Heavyweight title against former world champion Leslie Stewart at the National Tennis Centre on September the 13th. Stewart, the WBA title holder in 1986 and 87, replaces Ugandan Paul Maudi, who has been ruled ineligible by the Commonwealth Boxing Board. Waters' bout is the undercard to Jeff Fennick's fight against Argentinian Miguel Francia.
Then I'd be nearly missed the bus because
they run across in the rain.
We're a 4-shot.
Newcastle Council has been debating the issue of award system of government for almost a year now. Unable to come to a satisfactory decision, Council decided to approach the Minister for Local Government, Jerry Peacock, for advice. He suggested a referendum to let the people of Newcastle decide if the city is split into voting zones or remains a franchise system of government. Tonight, Newcastle Council supported that suggestion. When Newcastle residents go to the poll in 5 weeks' time, not only will they be voting for the alderman of their choice, but also the very system of government by which the city operates. Whatever the outcome of the referendum, it will not be legal or final. It's just to gauge the general feeling of residents on the ward issue. So ultimately, the decision still rests with Council. Jodie McKay at City Hall for NBN News.
Julio and Elsie Irma lost their small mixed business in Mayfield during the 1989 earthquake. A $70,000 loan from the Earthquake Appeal Fund put them back in business in a small rented gift and grocery shop opposite the Wallsend Hospital. The shop enjoyed a steady $1,000 a day income from the hospital trade up until the closure of the outpatients and children's wards earlier this year. The official announcement that the hospital will close leaves the Irmas facing not only the loss of their jobs, but also the loss of their livelihood.
I'm going to lose three-quarters of my business over it. I borrowed the money through earthquake appeal, and I don't know, I'm going to pay it back.
The Premier yesterday ruled out the chance of a reprieve for the hospital, and Julio's is the latest voice in a storm of protest.
I would say, how about spending some of that money that he wants to do for the Olympic Games and for a casino and all those other little things they got to do for Sydney. What about spending on the health of our nation in here, Newcastle?
Community outrage over the closure hasn't yet reached boiling point, according to the organisers of a protest rally to be held at the hospital next Wednesday.
In my experience in this movement, I've never experienced anything like the community outrage that's being displayed, particularly over the last week, since last Friday when the announcement was made.
The unmanned ambulance was in the depot when a joyrider jumped into the driver's seat and took off along Denison Street. Police soon sighted the vehicle and chased it through Charlestown. The pursuit continued along the Pacific Highway through the S-Bends. The ride ended when the driver of the stolen vehicle slammed into a traffic light at Gateshead, then rammed into a nearby tree. The driver was unhurt. The front end of the ambulance was extensively damaged. A 16-year-old New Lambton boy has been remanded in custody to face 6 charges in relation to the incident. Alan Playford took a day off work today, recovering from both physical and psychological bruises. Yesterday he was minding his own business in the busy Charlestown shopping area when a stranger approached him.
I tried to step around him, he continued to block my way.
The attacker threw a punch, slamming Alan against a wall. He had no choice but to defend himself. More than 40 people crowded to watch.
He had me down on the ground in a headlock, and I was appealing to people who were passing, would someone for pity's sake help me and or call the police. No one came to my aid.
For Alan, a man who was trained to save lives, the inaction of the people around him was a complete shock.
Various stages that it went on for, which would be about 10 minutes, there would have been 40 or 50 people standing around and no one would come to my aid.
Eventually a sole policeman came to help, but even then no onlookers would get involved.
Well, it leaves you wondering about the milk of human kindness.
There are 3,000 car parking spaces at the uni, but more than 13,000 students. Each day, hundreds of people park illegally, cluttering up walkways and damaging lawns.
Need to provide additional parking space, and the revenue that would be raised from a parking fee will be used to service a lane to build a multi-storey car park.
The university's call for parking fees has stumped students. According to the Students' Association, they'll face a charge of $48 a year, forcing them to park in residential streets, creating another problem outside the uni gates.
Students would turn to park in Jasmine and Birmingham Gardens, parking on footpaths, on residences' front lawns, and just completely blocking the streets in people's homes.
What would alleviate the problem is this train station that we've been rallying for months now, or actually years. It's been on the cards since 1967. If we can get that, that's going to alleviate a hell of a lot of the problem.
The students say bus services too should be extended. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
By making the CHS final, the Katara team has already gone to great heights. In a competition traditionally dominated by Illawarra and Sydney schools, Hunter teams have been easy beats for too long.
It's the first time, as far as I can recollect, that a Hunter school has got to the grand final. We're very pleased, and we've got some good players, so I think we've earned our position.
To qualify for the decider, the Katara boys won 8 consecutive games. Their smallest winning margin has been 17 points, and they have every reason to be confident going into the big one against Albury. The game will be Ben Melmoth's last for his school. The 16-year-old centre, who easily tops the 2-metre mark, is off to the US in less than a fortnight. He's understandably keen to go out on a real high note.
Well, I got a scholarship from the high school. They heard about me and they thought, well, we need someone tall. So they heard about me and they said, we want you. I want to continue on my last year of school, but it's just not possible if you want to be a player, you go up to America and you can do it so much better over there.
The 36-piece police concert band played all the favourites to thrill the 430 students. The band plays a major role in community-based policing, travelling throughout the state helping to improve the image of police. While band members used to be regular officers, all are now professional musicians.